fair to say that corporate treasurers have to navigate an increasingly complex environment. They face new risks, like cybersecurity, for instance, which now ranks among their primary concerns. They have to cope with increasing regulations, with a trend to multiple local regulations. And they also need to interact with an ever more complex ecosystem of providers. And here I'm thinking banks, ERP and TMS vendors, tech giants, fintechs, and what have you. Altogether, this is translating into a growing and rightful feeling of uncertainty. At the same time, corporate treasurers express different expectations toward their financial partners that mirror their dual role in the company. On one hand, you have the morning treasurer. He's focused on business as usual, daily routine, and he's essentially looking for a standardized, open, and frictionless experience. And here we're talking multi-channels, STP, plug-and-play solutions, seamless interconnections, real-time monitoring, etc., etc. On the other hand, you have the afternoon treasurer, and he's concentrated on longer-term strategic project. And what he is really looking for is a true trusted advisor that can help him steer the business. Now, in this overall environment, trust acts as a lighthouse. It helps navigate complexity. Historically, banks have been sitting on decades of historical trust, but their edge is slowly eroding, and especially in mature geographies where tech players can play on their delivery and new tech capabilities. So it's now high time for banks to engage in that trust battle. Trust is not always a scientific equation. There's obviously a pinch of subjectivity in there. But what this survey told us is that for treasurers, and when it comes to their financial partners, there are at least 3 components that are absolutely critical in building that trust. Number one, there's the inherent trust, the one that corporates put into their banks in general. It comes from the fact that banks are highly regulated and therefore they inspire security. Clients know that with so much oversight and regulations, with such stringent KYC procedures, for instance, we must be safe. So this inherent trust, it's also a reaction to banks' balance sheet commitments. We're taking risk and we're showing trust by granting loans to our clients. And in a way, they reciprocate because it's always easier to trust someone who's demonstrated that he already trusts you. The second ingredient is delivery excellence, which builds on a balance between robustness and agility. So obviously here, robustness of our systems and processes, just as much as guaranteed data security, are absolute prerequisites to qualify as a trusted provider. But they're not sufficient. So you must also demonstrate agility in your processes and in the service level to meet your client's specific expectations and at the same time achieve a much needed differentiation. So for instance, flexibility and proactive communications are also at the core of the service excellence. Finally, and the third ingredient, which is probably the trickiest, by the way, of the 3 components, is the relationship excellence. So as you would expect, it starts from demonstrating sharp business expertise, deep industry and client knowledge, but also, and most importantly, a greater overall transparency. It also calls for a truly disintermediated, cross-functional and agile communication. So all those core requirements expressed by treasurer are a clear opportunity for banks to anchor long-term trust. At this point, it's clear that the trust battle has begun and that it will be fierce. So for banks to win this critical battle, they will need to innovate and create a model that builds on banks' inherent trust on one hand, but also combine it with other players' agile capabilities like fintechs, for instance. Now, leveraging on the inherent trust is always helpful, but as we've discussed before, it is far from enough. So I would highlight maybe 3 main levers for banks to win that trust battle. Number one, is to adopt a new business as usual paradigm and offer corporate treasurer a true zero interaction experience, one that is supported by a truly open ecosystem approach. And this is for the morning treasurer. He must forget we even exist. 2 is to structure integrated and agile multidisciplinary teams. We've seen that treasurers are calling for the end of a centralized relationship model where they would have to go through a single point of contact. What they rather want is a whole client team in front of them, the whole team displaying the same acute client and industry knowledge and operating into a very agile way. So they want their IT people to talk to our IT people, they want their back office people to talk to our back office people, etc., etc. Finally, and most importantly, I would say, we must become a data-enhanced organization. Data is a major catalyst of relationship model renewal. We must enable enhanced business knowledge through data analytics that in turn enables customized interactions and truly proactive communications with our clients. We must learn how to use data to generate client intelligence in their everyday experience. And by the way, that goes both for the morning and the afternoon treasurer.